folks, hi, thank you, and thanks for coming out to this meeting, and thanks for coming out here to see me. So this presentation focuses on Google Cloud SQL and front-ending Google Cloud SQL with Google Apps Script application on the front end. So what I'll do is, the overall structure of this presentation is I'll talk a little bit about myself, a little bit about Google Apps Script, to explain what it is in a very general way. I have a sample application that I built that will illustrate what's going on with Google Cloud SQL and integrating that with a Google Apps Script front end. I'll talk a little bit about connecting, before that I'll talk a little bit about Google Cloud SQL as a product. I'll discuss a little bit about connecting Google Apps Script, a GIS application, to a Google Cloud SQL database. I'll talk a little bit about the engineering behind the GIS front end, mention a little bit about additional resources and links, and take some questions, and hopefully I'll get all this done within the allotted 30 minutes. All right, so a little bit about me. My name is Frank Solomon. I build software. I'm a software developer. I'm a technical writer, and you can find out more about me at my LinkedIn page, QR code URL here, linkedin.com/in/Frank Solomon. Sorry, the gentleman.
I'm getting a copy of the slides.
Matt? Yeah. Thanks. So this is my blog, bitvectors.blogspot.com. It shows, I put all the stuff, or all the recent stuff that I've written and built on this blog. The blog articles have pointers to my GitHub repository. At GitHub, I am FBSOLO, FB Solo, and you can find out more. You can see the blog at this QR code URL right here. So this presentation more specifically covers an article that I published in December 2014 at BitVectors. There's the title. It has this grand massive title, but it's a really, ultimately it's a really simple idea. Again, tying front-ending a Google Cloud SQL application, a Google Cloud SQL database with a store procedure that has recursion and front-ending it with a Google Apps Script spreadsheet application, and you can find the URL QR coded right here. Excuse me. So to basics, Google Apps Script is a programming. It's a development tool that is based exclusively. It is really based on JavaScript. Everyone knows, or pretty much everyone knows JavaScript. It's a friendly tool. It's a friendly language. We're all familiar with it. There's nothing fancy about it. Google Apps Script applications are fully hosted in the Google Cloud infrastructure. Nothing is stored locally. Everything is the development environment, the files themselves, the applications are in the cloud. Like Visual Basic for Applications, which is integrated with Microsoft Office files, especially spreadsheets and Word documents. Google Apps Script applications are very tightly integrated with Google Drive files, spreadsheets, documents, forms, and so on. To learn more about JavaScript, if you want to learn more about it, or you might not be strong with it, Code Academy has a lot of material about it. There's tons, years worth of material on YouTube, and you can find out just with Google searching more about Google Apps Script as a new tool if you're new to it. And like it says here, don't take my word for it. Visit script.google.com to learn more about it. So, this. An inevitable question, if I hadn't covered it here, someone would ask, well, can you build a GAS application without first dealing with an underlying Google Drive file? And it turns out you can. This URL tells all about it. It's really simple. It's not much different from starting with a more, quote, conventional, close quote, application, Google Apps Script application. But there's a few different steps. It's not hard. This URL will talk more about it. Oh, and by the way, if anyone has a question at any point, definitely raise your hand, definitely ask. Oh, and Google Cloud resources, they cost. There's a cost involved. They charge by time, in other words, how long you've been using the product, and they could charge by bit volume, how much activity you have, measured by queries, responses, and so on, that you use the product. It's when you go to look at the to learn more information about the products that you want to use. There's probably whoa, sorry about that. Sorry about that. One moment, sorry about that. Yeah, thank you. It's a cost, but fortunately, you can get a free trial account worth $300 of resources if you visit this QR code URL right here. Is Mr. Eric Schmidt here this evening at all? No? Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. He, it's a real help for us wanting to do the R&D, like myself. Okay, now I set up the demo application in an incognito window, and I hope this works because I want to show it. Okay, here it is. Okay, cool. You folks can see it. Very, very briefly, this is an outgrowth of an article that I originally published at databasejournal.com in, I believe, April 2013. And the idea was to use SQL Server in that article. SQL Server store procedures, functions, and common table expressions, but using the recursion features of these features to do something useful. Everyone, when they talk about recursion, when they try to teach about it or lecture about it, they do factorials. Everyone does factorials. What I wanted to do is something a little more, well, quote, practical, close quote, and the idea is to, you'll see this shortly, take a base 10 integer between 1 and 65, 535, and unpack it to its base 10 multiple of 2 components. And what that does is, it's kind of primitive, it's not very fancy, but it's a way to compress and compact information in as many as 5 digits. You can actually compress a lot of information into it. This is the demo application. This is a spinner, a Jquery Spinner, and what you can do with it is you can go like that to pick an integer somewhere in this range here. Of course, the demo application doesn't have error checking. Yes?
Can you bump the font up on that a little bit?
Views and then, how's that?
More.
Oh, okay. More? More?
Might as well use the whole screen if you can.
Well,
There you go.
no, everyone good?
Yeah.
A little more. Get the submit button closer to the right. You got a lot of white space.
One more time.
Sorry, folks, I'm not.
There you go.
Sorry, folks, I'm not laptop compatible. I don't have one right now. I use desktops. You know, everything is. That's just the way things work. This. All right, and again, like I was saying, this doesn't have error checking or like armor plate. It's just what we type in here. Well, we could also just type random integers within this limit. So let's look what happens. So we hit submit, and I hope this works. Here we go, cool. So you can see what happens. That integer there, that's our friend here. And what this does is it unpacks. There's probably a fancy number theory way to phrase this, but it unpacks that integer into its base 2 components, both as a comma delimited list and here that's not good, into a nice, more databasey result set equivalent. And what also happens is it does the same thing mirrored on the spreadsheet. So you'll have to take it on faith for right now, but you can see this was the number mirrored here. Okay? So back to the, and I'm supposed to, what am I supposed to do? Hit it.
Third button on the right.
Thank you. Thanks, folks. Okay, so were there any questions about the demo app? Okay, cool, thanks.
It's
Oh.
no,
It's just the screen.
Well, okay.
You'll be fine.
Okay, so like I was saying and mentioning, Google Cloud SQL is it's a MySQL product. It's basically MySQL offered as a resource, as a product by Google, and it has all the stuff you would expect and would need in a relational database. I come and came from a SQL Server background. This was kind of all new to me, but it really wasn't. I mean, you know one, you know them all. Really, I mean, if you're comfortable with one, it's SQL. Everyone knows this. Learn more about it. Again, just like JavaScript at YouTube, this will tell you a lot about it. Do your research. I mean, the research is available for everyone. And I gotta move fast because there's still a lot to cover. One of the important things about using Cloud SQL is that you have to make Cloud SQL as a product. You have to connect that to your local development environment. You use what's called, and this is new to me, a workbench, a MySQL workbench, and it's the workbench where you through which you see your Google Cloud SQL resources. This URL talks about making the connection between the workbench and those cloud resources. This focuses more on configuring the Cloud SQL end of things, and this is part of what has to happen when you build out your local resources. This is very important. In the console, what they do is the Cloud SQL product gives you what's called a console. You use that to do your administration of the product. One of the tabs in the overview tab will tell you. See that right there? That tells you that it expects you to use a MySQL 5.5 workbench. Don't use a MySQL 5.6 workbench. Don't use a MySQL 5.7 workbench. Use a MySQL 5.5 workbench, and Cloud SQL will be very happy. It will help you, and it will work with you. Use anything past that, and nothing will work. Trust me. And you can find a workbench from the nice MySQL folks starting here at this URL. All these formats and varieties and stuff, there's something for everyone. You'll find it. You'll find a MySQL workbench. It's the tool you use locally, again, to build out the resources that you will use in the cloud. MySQL 5.5. And what has to happen also is that you'll need this URL, this IP address in the Access Control tab, because you will take this IP address, and the Cloud SQL instance username and password, and you will configure your your MySQL workbench with those 3 items to make your workbench aware of the Google Cloud SQL resources. So you're going both ways. Cloud SQL has to know about your workbench has to know about the Cloud SQL resources that you want to use, to which you want it to point. This is also important. I really don't understand why the IP addresses in this QR coded URL were not hardwired in here, but I found that it's kind of important to take the however many IP addresses in here and drop them in here. I used to think also that you needed to use the IP address of your development environment, but I finally realized that's stupid, because, I mean, if it's a universally available application, I mean, you're not going to do that. Just start with these, with the IP addresses here. And another thing too, I originally planned to make this presentation, whatever it was, last month or something. It got canceled, and I found that these screenshots for the cloud resources, for the Cloud SQL product, things had changed. Now, they didn't change much, but, oh yeah, okay, then folks know about this. Things change, and these screenshots you see here that are in the deck, things might look a little different when you go to actually use the product, but just be aware of that. It's nothing traumatic. You'll figure it out, but don't freak out. All right, now, so this, and again, if there's any questions, let me know. So this is the overall structure of the application. This here is the Google Apps Script application, and what it does is it points out to the stored procedures that are in the Cloud SQL product. There's 3 stored procedures plus a 4th one to build out the table and get the rows into it. The application does not, this is the core this is the core stored procedure of the whole system.
What's DLM?
DLM.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Comma, yes, comma delimited. DLM is delimited, and this is USP return table of values. USP return comma delimited string. The application, the front end application, does not see the core stored procedure. Instead, it makes calls as appropriate to these guys here, which in turn pass parameters down and return result sets up back to the front end application. So this is the first this is the first stored procedure. Everything is available at my my GitHub, FB Solo. There's a repository in there. You can pull everything down. This is part of that package. This stored procedure is, I mean, again, coming from SQL Server, it's pretty straightforward. Using a database called Demo that I already built, I just ran this thing. I mean, you can see what it is by inspection. Drop the procedure if it exists, blah, blah, blah. This is some MySQL specific stuff. Creating a table with 2 columns and inserting rows into it. Those rows look messed up here, but they will look great. Well, as you saw, they look great. My voice. They look great in the front end application. I mean, there's nothing dramatic or out of scope here. It's bread and butter stuff. Grab it down from this QR coded URL here. This is the core stored procedure of the whole thing, of the whole system. To me, if a product can handle recursion, that means that it's a high quality product. I like, and I know that if I have a really nasty problem, that for which I have to use recursion, the product is there for me. You need this is not the time to talk about recursion, but it's enough to say it's, recursion involves a chunk of software that calls itself. You need two things, but actually three things for recursion. You need a base case or a solution state for that chunk of software. That's one. Two, you need a way to drill down to that solution state in a finite number of steps. That's the official stuff you need. And three, that I say you need a tool that will handle recursion. MySQL stored procedures will handle recursion. MySQL functions will not. It would be nice if the functions did, but they don't. And Cloud SQL stored procedures will handle it as well. So again, we're using that demo database, dropping the stored procedure if it is, oh yeah, this is the URL, QR coded URL for this stored procedure, again available in the grade section. And there's nothing so far really fancy about this thing. Down here, this is the first kind of important. This is the first kind of important thing here. If you leave this switch or this switch out, MySQL stored procedures will default to 0 recursion. They won't handle recursion. They will not handle, recursion. You have to put this in to enable the recursion. The top end depth is, I believe, 255. My SQL Server, in contrast, will handle, I think, 32K. It's not nice. I mean, it would be nice if it was more, but this is the product they give us. There were only, top end 16 possible recursion steps in this application. I just set it to 20. So there's two parameters, the integer to unpack coming in, and this will become, this parse string will become the comma delimited list that will go out. And if it comes in as null, just say it's, what is that, empty or nothing, or whatever it is, I don't know. But I think it's empty. This here, this URL here does not tie in with this QR code here. This is for my own use because I will use this, the parse string as part of an in, or what the equivalent of an in clause in a SQL, in a MySQL stored procedure. And you gotta do things a little different to use a comma delimited string here in a MySQL in clause equivalent, and this talks about it. So, and this is, as you can see, it's very clearly commented. Here's the base case. If n equals 0, it's just gonna do a little surgery on the parse string. What it's really doing is chopping off the ending comma and then arranging to get it returned. That's the base case. Here's the guts of it. So component, you'll just have to take it on faith. All these functions here, what they do is, you start with a positive, we'll say positive now, positive base 10 integer, and what you do is, these functions will pull out the largest base 10 multiple of 2 component out of that starting integer n. So for 17 for example, what this would compute component as 16. 16 is a friendly base 10 multiple of 2 number integer that we all know and love. All right, so parse string, what it's doing here is it's taking the existing parse string, which could be empty. It's taking that existing parse string, concatenating that computed component on the end, and adding a trailing comma. It recomputes n. What it does is it pulls out that computed component, gets everything ready, and recursively calls the stored procedure, which is itself USP build comma DLM string. There's the recursion. There is the drill down right there, drilling down to the base case in a finite number of steps. And there's the base case. All happening in a tool that can handle recursion. Any questions? Okay, proceeding. So what this does is, and I'll try to go a little faster here. This stored procedure will simply return that comma delimited string, that USP build comma delimited string computed. It just selects it, casting it as a car 255 to whatever calls it. Find it here at this QR coded URL. This stored procedure will return will convert that comma delimited string as an input parameter, and what it'll do is it'll query that example table that the first stored procedure built, and what it'll do is it'll say select star and on the sidebar. I know you're not supposed to use star in a stored procedure. This is a demo, so just deal with it. I know better than this. We all know better than this. This is the in clause. This is the in clause equivalent for the SQL Server feature. What it does, you got to do this. It's very different, but it's not traumatic. What it's doing is saying select star from example table where this and it's filtering on example table row.id with the stuff in parse string. Parse string, not only, this is also very important, in SQL Server it wants surrounding parens, open, close parens, and it kind of likes spaces between the individual items. Not here. No parens and no spaces, just commas between the list items. That was new to me, but I eventually figured it out. That's why I commented. That's why I put a comment in there in the stored procedure, in that core stored procedure. Again, nothing out of scope, nothing traumatic. It's basic bread and butter stuff. URL, QR coded URL here. Any questions? Okay. Now we'll look at the application files out on the front end for the application, and I hope this works. Right here, okay. And if it's all right, well, if it's all right, is it okay if I zoom out a little bit to get more? Is that all right? Oh, okay, sorry about that. Okay, so this is the front end. You'll note, or shorten, that it only has 2 files. I personally like Visual Studio. I like it a lot. It's an old friend, but I gotta tell you, you build a front end application, and Visual Studio, it just makes these incredibly massive and gigantic file masses for a little tiny application. And I know that because I wrote an article about that, again, front-ending BigQuery with with Visual Studio, also available at my blog. And this is just 2 files, which does almost the same thing. So let's look at it. Every Google application, every one of these applications has at least this file here, code.js. And what happens is code.js, the thing that matters most is this function right here. The way it works is when the user gets the URL for the application, this is the first thing that runs. You have to have code.js, and you must have the function doGet. This is the first line that happens. This is really the only line in doGet. What's going on here is that it says, okay, this is the starting point, and what I will do is as the application, I will immediately load this .html file, which is right here. This is a plain Jane HTML file that draws, that writes this application right here, this web page that the user sees. It's HTML. Again, that's another old friend. You can see plenty of HTML down here, and it has lots of JavaScript, which is really the core of this thing, the core of the front end. All right, so that's nice. So we have this front end application that this HTML wrote. All right, so now what? Well, you can use this spinner to pick an integer, or as you saw, we can type one. But then presumably, the user would hit submit to make all that magic stuff happen. Well, let's look at this, and this is where it gets really interesting. This is the HTML for that submit button. Here's the on-click of it, submit data. And if I can scroll up to it, well, yeah, sorry. Submit data is right here. And again, we're in the .html file. This is the function submit data. We just clicked it to run it. We set up a string which will give a message if something went wrong. But now it gets really interesting. It grabs that picked value off the spinner and puts it in a variable. And then, and again, we're still in the .html file. Then it runs, something happens with this line here. This is probably the strangest thing that I had to unlearn and relearn how to use. So the first, and we want to read this thing right to left. So the action starts here on the right. We're going to call it return form params, and we will pass that return form params with this value here, spinner val. Well, that's nice, but where is return form params? Return form params is back here. All right? And I should say, full disclosure, I don't know if the way I built this thing is the way the vendor intended it to be used. I think it is, but it's not. This is my R&D guessing and checking and trial and error. If someone else has a better way to do this, without all this, which you'll see shortly, bouncing back and forth between these files, I want to know about it. Please put a comment out about that on my blog. Okay, so we're in return form params in the code.js. This, and what's going to happen is the queries to the database happen here. These, and I have a slide about this. I think it's the next slide. These are the metadata that you need to connect the Google Apps Script application with the Cloud SQL resources. And it's pretty intuitive. You know, there's the database, address, the URL, blah, blah, blah. Originally, I had this stuff hardwired right in the code.js machinery. My thanks to Mr. Kaufman, because he pointed out, and again, there's a slide about this. No, you don't do it that way. There's a way to put it off in a safe, put these metadata pieces in a safe place, which has more security. I didn't know about it, Mr. Kaufman did, thank you. And it's, again, coming from a Visual Studio MySQL background. It's new, but it's not. You know, you're setting up a connection object, you're setting up statement, what will become statement objects with the name of the stored procedure, connecting as appropriate the parameters, the parameter values. Here is where you actually make the execution happen, putting the result sets, the output from those executions into what will become result variables. It's again, it's bread and butter stuff. These next lines, and this file, I should have said it earlier. This file here drives the behavior of the underlying spreadsheet. It has nothing to do with the web page that the user sees. This drives the spreadsheet. And what this does here is it's saying, okay, I will put a certain result set here at this cell, and I will put another result set at this, and what will become this cell. So here, the function takes the result set object, and it knows the target address, and it writes the results, which I'll get to shortly, and it puts everything from the output into what will become a variable called results set array 1 and results array 1 and results array 2. Closes out everything because it's expensive to keep these resources open, and it writes the picked spinner value in a specific cell, bundles up everything into what will become an array, and returns that finished array somewhere with this return statement. Now, we can scroll down, thank you. Write results. This got called in this machinery twice. There's the results array, the results object, and this is the target. This is spreadsheet stuff. It's not that hard. It's just getting everything ready for where the result sets will.
Wrap it up.
Okay. Sorry.
Can we go,
Sorry. So it's the important thing about this is this loop is the one that is the guts of this of this function. It's a while loop, but watch out. The incrementer has to go in the Boolean. It doesn't go in the body of the loop. It has to go here. And that threw me for a while, but I finally figured it out. It writes everything and builds what will become the HTML that goes on the web page, and it returns everything, slicing off the last 4 characters to make everything work. So we're back here, and then it takes that. This now becomes a finished the returned array that that return form params returned. It calls callback, and callback, which is again on the .html file, in the HTML file, it writes everything on the web page, and it uses oh, that's another thing. You can use jQuery in this stuff too, which is very helpful. It writes everything, and then you're done. The reset button, what that does too is it, I can find it. Ah, yes, here it is. The reset calls a jQuery function, which cleans out everything on the web page, and it also calls a function in code.js, which cleans out everything in the spreadsheet. And then when it's done doing its work on, and when ClearSheet is done, it pops back here, and we're good to go again. Any questions?
Very nice.
Thanks. One more thing. Present. So yeah, if you drill down to file, project property, script prop. So question.
Frank, just to be fair to the other presenters,
Okay.
can we,
So that's it.
can we, do you have any final thoughts or?
So we'll upload this to Meetup as well as,
Yeah, just in closing, thanks, sorry about going over time. They have a lot of products out there right now, and it's kind of a hassle to use like the Xcode machinery to build Xcode applications using this stuff. For example, do it this way. Just do it this way. Use Google Apps Script to front end everything. It's tiny files. They're easy to build, easy to fix, easy to understand, and just do it this way. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, so,
Folks, sorry I went overtime.